Hello and a very warm welcome to today's global NIP Update Roundtable, developing and updating national implementation plans, challenges and good practices, hosted by the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership. I'm Hannes McNulty, Green Industry Platform Manager with the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership, or GGKP, as you all probably better know us by. This is the fourth capacity building roundtable in the series being hosted by GGKP, and that aims to share challenges, lessons learned, and good practices that are being continuously brought together by the global NIP Update project executing agencies during the process of developing, reviewing, and updating the national implementation plans. Now, I know it has been a while since the last roundtable, but today's event is not just a very interesting opportunity to get key insights from the regional executing agencies. It is also the start of an exciting new phase of activities and events that will be taking place during 2024. So I suggest do stay tuned on news of these over the next coming period. And now, as we're very keen to ensure that today's event and those upcoming in the future are adapted to your needs, I really encourage you to engage with the panelists to share all your questions and comments. You will be hearing about many invaluable learnings today, along with quite an important introduction to the benefits of the integrated electronic toolkit. This is therefore your opportunity to obtain the information and knowledge to address common challenges and identify best practices for effective NIP development and implementation. Today's moderator is my colleague Anastasia Bushok, and she will be leading a very interesting discussion with some of the NIP executing agencies and international experts. So on behalf of GGKP, let me thank you in advance, the speakers, for your time. And of course, you, the audience, for taking part today. And with that, please let me hand over to you, Anastasia, to take the discussion forward.
Thank you very much, Hannes. And again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Once again, welcome to our roundtable hosted by GGKP. And my name is Anastasia. As Hannes mentioned, I'm supporting Component 4 of Global NIP Update project. And today's roundtable, developing and updating national implementation plans, challenges and good practices, will share insights from the Global NIP Update project. And we are excited to have a lineup of esteemed speakers who will discuss the challenges and good practices in developing, renewing, and updating national implementation plans under the Stockholm Convention. And it's even more meaningful as we are hosting this event on World Environment Day, and taking this opportunity, let me extend my gratitude to all the colleagues leading their thoughts towards POPs-free planet. Thank you very much. It's been a while since we hosted our webinars due to a number of administrative constraints, unfortunately, but we are happy to announce that our technical webinars would start from next month, and we would be glad to share the topics that would come first. That would be general inventory training, sector approach to inventories of POPs and other chemicals of concern in buildings, construction, electrical and electronic equipment, and vehicles in July next month. Data collection exercise, production, use and trade of POPs newly listed in the Stockholm Convention, tentatively scheduled for July. POPs inventories, focus on new POPs, tentatively scheduled for August this year. POPs inventories, focus on PFAS, tentatively scheduled for August this year. The rest would be the quality assurance and quality control for POPs inventories, data validation in September, and strengthening the collaboration with national statistical offices in October this year. In addition to that, we would introduce a new section on our website where we would launch online courses for all the countries on the following topics: step-by-step approach on how to implement BATs and BAPs to reduce UPOPs emissions, NIP priority settings, and POPs alternatives. Please take note that our colleagues in Component 1 and 2 produced a vast amount of knowledge resources that hopefully would become irreplaceable tools in your hands in the process of NIP development and update. And GGKP is currently preparing this resources for publication and will share the links to them soon next following month. And now back to our event. This event is conducted in English language. Unfortunately, this time we did not have our interpreters, but we would ensure that they are here from next webinar from next month. And this event would be recorded. Recording will be made available on the website right after this event, while we would develop the summaries of today's discussion in Spanish, French, and Russian, and distribute across the executing agencies and countries. This roundtable would last 60 minutes with future insights from executing agencies and technical experts, but we would be glad to give the floor to other colleagues. So please leave your message in the chat if you want to add the discussion. Please also feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, leave your questions to the panelists. I'm pleased to introduce our panelists today, Ms. Gabriela Medina, Director of BCCC's CRC Uruguay, Ms. Marisa Charles, Project Coordinator at BCRC Caribbean, Mr. Vincentius Mongora, Assistant Project Coordinator from Africa Institute, Dr. Roland Weber, POP's Environmental Consultant and author of numerous guidance documents for this project, and Ms. Mihaela Claudia Pan, Program Management Officer, who is leading the efforts in components 1 and 2 of the project. Let me give the floor to our first speaker. Our first presentation will cover the process of NIP development on a national level, focusing on challenges and lessons learned. Please welcome Ms. Gabriela Medina, Director of BCCC CRC Uruguay. And I'll stop here. The floor is yours.
Sorry, Vika. Can you hear Gabriela?
No, we unfortunately cannot hear Gabriela. Just give us a second.
Yeah,
Could
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bro. Okay. And so thank you, Anastasia, for introduction, and thank GGKP for this opportunity to give you some summary of our challenge and good practice during NIP update. We are executing the NIP updating in 3 countries in the region, in Bolivia, in Peru, and in Uruguay. And it's a pleasure to be here. And thank UNEP as well. So I will try to share my screen. So let me see if you can see it. Would you see my screen?
Yeah, all good.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, great.
Come to the screen.
So as I told you, and Anastasia introduced myself, I'm Gabriela Medina, Director of the Basin Coordinator, Basin Convention Center, Stockholm Convention Regional Center, hosted by Uruguay. And this is my presentation. And I was the first speaking. I was. I'm going to make an introduction of the topic. So you know that the NIP updated. This project, its objective is to help the parties to comply with their obligations under the Stockholm Convention regarding Article 7, and it's necessary to strengthen the political environment and the technical capacities of the parties. Current status of national reporting and NIP in the region of GRULAC. maybe this is quite small to see, but this is the status, and you can see at the beginning of the years, the NIP the update process was quite good, but in the recent years, it becomes smaller and smaller. So that is the reason that we are here and we have this project. The steps for the NIP updates establish the coordinating mechanisms and organization process, establishment of POPs inventories and assessment of national infrastructure and capacity, priority assessment and objective settings, formulation of national implementation plans, and NIP endorsement and submission. Well, this is how at national levels we need to set all the committees and the national project coordinations and the national coordination committee. We are an executing agency, as you can see, and these are the organization at the internal country to secure that the NIP updating can be complete and endorsed. The challenges of the NIP update process, and this is, I think, is key of our presentations, that regarding, for example, databases, there are not databases in the country. The information is available, but in endless physical files. So for the inventories, the technical has to find all these papers and find all the information regarding the POPs productions of the POPs elimination and where they are. So to have this and in a physical files is quite a complex process. You can imagine the information is available in national database, but incomplete, and quality information is a problem as well, because there are some information that are overlapping, there are not similar one to each other, so it's a difficult situation. Regarding the stakeholders, the stakeholder engagements in the data collection process could be a problem as well, and strengthens the national capacity is a challenge as well. Regarding the private sector refuses to complete data collection forms, and sometimes it's difficult to try to get them on board. In some countries, not, depends on company, for example, but we have some problems on this regard, and private companies do not participate in the committee meetings several times. Regarding the inventory of new POPs, identifications of the product with the new POPs is a quite complex process. And regarding the resource, lack of financial and technical resource, and lack of knowledge or ability of to apply the NIP upgrading methodology. And regarding the technical results, or regarding the stakeholders in our countries, we have, like, for example, they changed the government, and the change of government, they change as well directors. So the people is changing over the years, and sometimes the people who is coming in, they know nothing about the convention, the Stockholm conventions. So we need to involve them again and again and again. So it's a very tough situation, a very difficult task, and we have to be like organization this gap of training or capacitation every time and sometimes every year. Regarding gender equality, it is necessary to continue working on the understanding the interaction between sex, gender, and exposure to persistent organic pollutants, and being able to include this aspect on the NIPS. This is quite an issue as well in the region, because sometimes the situation of the different risks to the different sex or gender exposure of the child, for example, is an issue as well, because it's difficult to understand and it's difficult to identify the kind of people who are at risk, and the people that like children, for example, that have more risks to the pop exposure. Regarding the lessons learned for adapting the NIPS and submitting the national report, it is necessary to have human and financial resources to update the national inventories. There must be a national coordination mechanism that involve all key actors. And this is something that I said before, is a challenge as well to create this national coordination mechanism with all stakeholders on board. A centralized database is required to store the information generated during the NIPS update. The permanence of technical personnel training in the matter must be ensured. The NIP update schedule must be planned according to the reality to each country. Key actors must be continually trained. This is something that I said before, in the development of inventories of new POPs and the methodology for updating the NIPs. The NIP is a useful tool for the development of public policies that observe due attention and to support from key actors. Regarding strengthening legal and institutional framework, it is essential that the countries of the region develop a specific regulatory instruments for the management of chemical substances. It is necessary to have mechanisms for generating data that oblige the industry to report its chemical substance stock and mandate public inventory, generate manuals and chemical substance management. Application of all definition and transfer registered to the national level. 5. Advanced for technical
Sorry, Gabriela, probably can't hear you clearly. Just lost you a while back. No. Hello? Sorry, we still can't hear you. Just lost you a while back.
Yes, we can see the slides changing, but we can hear the audio. Unfortunately. No, probably not. No, we cannot hear you, Gabriela.
Would you hear me now?
Yes, perfect, perfect. Thank you.
But did you miss the whole presentation?
No, it's just from the previous slide.
Or this one?
No, not next one.
This one?
I believe next one, next.
This one?
From the next one.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry for that. I was talking that regarding the lessons learned for updating the NIPs and submitting the national report, it's necessary to have human and financial resources to update national inventories. There must be a national coordination mechanisms that involve all key actors. That is something that I said before, that sometimes we have some problems to have these national coordinator mechanisms and to identify who has to be on board or has to be at the national coordination mechanisms. Sometimes the people, for example, from the minister don't see it's like something that is being prioritized in the environment agenda. Another issue is to have a centralized database, and is required to store the information generating during the NIP update. The permanence of technical personnel trained in the matter must be ensured, and this is something difficult as well, because when we have, for example, a project for the NIP to be updated, we can hire some personnel, train this personnel, but after the project is finished, we lost these people. So to maintain trained people, it's an issue in our region, at least. The NIP update schedule must be planned according to the reality of each country. Key actors must be continually trained in the development of inventory of new POPs, the methodology for updating the NIP. A few be aware, new POPs are quite complex chemicals, and there is a family of chemical. There are families of chemicals, and it's quite difficult to real knew where they are, where are the life cycle of them, since they come into the country. If they are produced into the country, it's something easier, but in the majority of the case, there are imported this kind of products with this kind of chemicals. Key actors must be continually training. I said that, sorry. The NIP is a useful tool for the development of public policies, as observers, due attention, and support from key actors. Regarding strengthening legal and institutional framework, it is essential that countries of the region develop a specific regulatory instrument for the management of chemical substances. It's necessary to have mechanisms for generating data that oblige the industrial sector to report its chemical substance stock and mandate the public sector to prepare inventories and generate manuals for chemical substance management. An application of pollutant emissions and buffer registry REDSE at national level, identify and take advantage of opportunities for technical exchange with organizations, international and rural countries, and other regions. The application of a REDSE brings multiple benefits for different sectors, but sometimes it's difficult to have this at national level. Conformation of intergovernmental committees or national coordinator mechanisms and their organization, as I already said before, that maybe POPs or or the new POPs are not prioritized in the national environmental agenda, so that the regulation and participation of all relevant authorities is necessary for the management of chemical products throughout their life cycle. Cooperation is very important in the distribution of information, in the systematic review of the pre-existing substance, and coordination in decision-making on risk management, among others. This aspect is essential when consolidation national plans that address the management of chemical products based on an integrated and transversal strategy. How the creation of a national coordination should be: identification of stakeholders, preparation of the terms of reference for the operation of these mechanisms, officialization of the mechanisms for the creation of a decree for its operation, preparation of a work plan of the mechanisms, and creation of committees or maybe subcommittees, because some people are focused on health, some people are focused on industrial sector, others on policies, and we need to have all on board. Creation of a board of directors of the working mechanisms, and of course, to put the mechanisms under operation. Regarding the technique, the national mechanisms and the focal point, sorry, development of training on a specific topic, inventory development methodology, sorry, methodological guides for the development of POPs inventories and strategic planning. And this, in general, a continued training plan is required. As I said before, because we have new POPs, because we could have new sectors, for example, with the new POPs that are listed in the Stockholm Convention, and the people that is changing the trained people or the technical one, as well as the minister that prioritize what is important or what is not in the national environmental agenda. The benefits of consolidation, all the reporting's obligation in a toolkit, that is something that we're trying to do, to use the toolkit developed by UNEP. It's greater effectiveness and efficiency in the implementation of the agreements, more consistency and coherence in the information and data to be reported, elimination of the gap of information and data required between the reports that must be presented to the Stockholm Convention, and reduction of the administrative and human and financial resource burden for avoiding duplication of effort. This is quite important, and this is why we are very focused to use the toolkit for the information under the obligation of the Stockholm Convention. How we have done as a center or as executing agency under the obligation of the Stockholm Convention, identification of the limitations for the countries of the region to present and update their POPs inventory and action plans, training countries to update their inventories and plans in response to identify knowledge limitations, development of awareness and communication materials, support the strengthening of the condition for the suitable monitoring of POP at a regional and national levels for the fulfillment of obligations under the Stockholm Convention, and in particular, their evaluation of effectiveness. Regarding this, and using the guide that has been development under the convention, we developed course on PBDE and HPCD based on the available guidance document. we developed a training course on the interpretation of monitoring data was
We are losing you. Sorry,
Gabriela, I'm very sorry, but we cannot hear you again. And if you could please kindly wrap up a little bit because we are close to the other presenter.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry for that and sorry for the problems with the mic. We developed a roadmap for development of national POPs monitoring program. We have worked with 2 countries, for example, with Mexico and Ecuador, provide technical support for the diagnosis and development of a proposed monitoring program in 2 countries in the region. And we developed awareness material that UNEP are going to present, but we have here some picture of what we have developed. And that's all. Thank you so much. And sorry for the technical issues.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Thank you so much. And it was indeed very valuable insights on the challenges the countries in the region are facing and the work the regional center in Uruguay has progressed so far to meet the requirements of the convention. And looking at the challenges you have outlined, I can see that cooperation with the private sector, I'm very sorry my camera was off, but cooperation with the private sector is indeed very pivotal. And it seems that data collection exercise together with the private sector is something that could be preventing countries from seamless inventory development. We also find it very important, and my colleague Stephanie Witherini, she's on the panel today. She's communications coordinator. Maybe she would probably add something to this in the end of our event. Once again, thank you very much for your presentation. And next we have Mr. Vincentius Mongora, Assistant Project Coordinator from Africa Institute, who would also share a bit on the challenges and NIP development review and update from the continent. Thank you. Floor is yours. Vincentius, I believe you're on mute. If you could unmute yourself, that would be great.
Oh, my apologies for that.
We can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, GGKP, for this opportunity to share some of the experiences on updating the NIP from the African continent. Good afternoon, everyone. I will make my presentation very short and sweet so that we can actually just catch up to the time so that we are on time to give also a chance to other speakers to speak. Like I've rightly said from the beginning, I'll be sharing with you some of the experiences and some of the challenges that countries face when reviewing and implementing the NIPs, but also additionally highlight a few that we experience also as a regional center as we coordinate the NIPs process. By the end of this engagement, we would really appreciate if we could connect with other regional centers as well as for countries also to connect amongst themselves so that we can learn from each others regarding the strategies that others have adopted in overcoming some of the challenges that are common to all of us. So to kick off my presentation, I will just give you just a brief overview of who we are as the Africa Institute. So the Africa Institute is a regional center based in South Africa, specifically in Pretoria. We are both a Basel Convention as well as a Stockholm Convention for English-speaking countries. And as a regional center, we are responsible for facilitating the implementation of the Stockholm Convention in the countries that are participating in the NIP. For the NIPS project that we have currently going, we have a total of 8 countries that are in participation as they are displayed before you. One thing that I would like to note is that this project kicked off in 2020 and it's expected to run until 2026 June. All of these countries are at different stages of implementation of specifically component 3 of component 3 of the project. The slide before you just gives you a glimpse of some of the common challenges that countries are facing. I think I should note that this list is not exhaustive, so we just decided to share with you those which are common amongst the country. Like I rightly said in the beginning, the kicking off of this project was delayed. Not all the countries started off as they planned to, which delayed the project from the onset. And also, one issue that was raised by almost everyone has to do with the bureaucracy of the system of government when it comes to handling of issues. These issues pertaining to, my apologies, there's just something happening from my end. Just give me a second. Anyways, let me just go on. Bureaucracy of government handling certain issues actually have definitely affected the kicking off the project and also have delayed some of the activities being implemented on time. Another issue that was alluded to is that which definitely has to do with non-priority being given to scientific issues, because NIPS is definitely not regarded by some countries as something of significance. Hence, it will have to compete with issues in relation to climate change. This definitely also is one of the common challenges that a lot of countries are experiencing in terms of the implementation of the NIPS. Inadequate buy-in from some policy makers. Not everybody definitely believe that this should be one of the top priorities or one of the projects that must be among the top 3 probably for the countries. Hence, it has happened that it has been sidelined. But one major issue that was also pointed out has to do with there being not a full-time project coordinator for the NIPS. Most of the focal points actually do have other projects that they are running, so they have to divide themselves among running the NIP project as well as attending to other things that requires their attention, thereby the project not getting the attention that it definitely rightly deserves. Within the project teams that have also been formed, there's definitely, it does happen that not the full support is not being given to this project from all the committee members. So which results in a short time being devoted to the NIPS project. Hence, it affects the implementation of the activities or the project being implemented as it was expected to. As we definitely know that limited financial resources are definitely a major hurdle, and implementing and updating the NIPS requires funding in order to implement activities pertaining to data collection as well as capacity building exercises, including other activities. Therefore, many countries struggle with the co-financing issues or allocating sufficient resources for these activities, which in the end then hinders effective management or implementation of the project. Additionally, there's also sometimes lack of interest in endorsing the NIP project. The present speaker also spoke to issues of change in management, and also there being an issue with having technical or highly trained people that actually have to do the data collection of this. So there have to be a retraining every time there's actually a change in management. Just to give you a glimpse as well on issues that regional centers definitely experience in the implementation of this project. We do experience issues. One of the major issues actually that we experience is that pertaining to a delay in the reporting. We may request information, but then this information comes in late, which in the end affects our submission that we have to do with the BRS. I'm sure people from the BRS are here, and hopefully they will be very lenient with us at the end of this, or at least also just trying to understand that these are some of the issues that we do experience. But we are grateful for platforms like this where we can openly speak about this, so that we do come up with strategies that will definitely be helpful, so that it will be helpful in implementing the project in a better way. The third point, which speaks to an active focal point required for the implementation, I've already alluded to this issue in the previous slide. So I'll move on to the other one, which definitely that, especially from the signage of, for example, the signing of the project corporate agreements requires input from legal departments, and the focal points do rely on these departments to finish some of these activities on time. And when that does not happen, this again also results in the project normally or the implemented or the project being derailed, and because the project normally would only go on after the PCI agreement has been finalized. So when that has not been concluded, this normally results again in the derailment of the project. Finances will always be needed in executing activities. So we do hope that we are able to probably come up with strategies in how we can get funding so that more resources are actually allocated to this project in order for the activities that are envisaged to be implemented are implemented in a better way. So with those short few words, I have come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vincentius, for joining us today and for sharing. We would also kindly invite our audience today to also elaborate on the challenges that you are facing. So please feel free to go to the chat. We've dropped the questions, so leave your answers and your opinions in the chat. And in the meantime, let me introduce our next speaker, Ms. Marissa Charles, Project Coordinator from BCSC Caribbean. We'll also share good practices from existing and former experiences in NIP Update. Floor is yours, Marissa.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, can you see the screen in full?
Yeah, we do see the screen. Thank you.
Okay, in full, yeah?
Yes, absolutely full.
Okay, great. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening to everyone on this webinar. Thank you for having me, to the GGKP team. My name is Marissa Charles, Project Coordinator at the Basel Convention Regional Center for the Caribbean. I will be presenting on sharing our experience that we've had within the Caribbean region with respect to NIP implementation plans, as well as some of our challenges similar to the other presenters. So just a little bit about us. We are located in Trinidad and Tobago. We are hosted by the government and we serve 15 Caribbean countries that you see on the screen. And so we assist them with not only just the NIP updates or NIP developments, but rather entirely implementation of these Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm conventions, as well as a little bit of the Minamata Convention. Thus far in the Caribbean region, we have supported Caribbean countries with their NIP updates. So further to their original NIPs that were submitted to the Secretariat when they first joined the convention. We have now supported Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Vincent and Grenadines, St. Lucia, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago under the GEF 5558 project, which was a regional project for the implementation of a sustainable mechanism for POPs in the Caribbean. So these are 8 Caribbean countries that benefited from a regional project for which targeted not only the NIP development, but it was part of the first component. We've also supported Guyana with their review and update of the National Implementation Plan, and they are currently at the phase of national endorsement for submission of their updated NIP to the Stockholm Convention Secretariat. And currently under this Global NIPS project, we are supporting the Bahamas and Dominica. So our main approach to updating the national implementation plans thus far would be similar to what is recommended through the guidance documents provided through the Secretariat. So we, in the instance or the beginning of the projects, we established projects or national working committees for encouraging stakeholder buy-in and support in the process. This way, we are able to identify key stakeholders that should be part of the process and that we will need to constantly contact, or in the instances of where they are not part of the working committees, it's important to also recognize or identify the key stakeholders that we will need to reach out for data or for site visits, etc., to determine where your POPs are to be managed. We tried our best to procure suitable and experienced consultants to assist us in the data collection, desktop research, as well as consultations through the development of the POPs inventories and NIPs, as well as the use of questionnaires that are specific to the country situations. So while we use the base of the questionnaires and materials that are provided through the guidance documents, it's important based on the country that we also look at making the questionnaire specific, so that, for example, if a country does not have a lot of industry, it's important in the beginning to kind of identify, okay, what are the POPs that will be of concern. Constant communication through the stakeholder committees as well as our wider stakeholders are really important. So we try to maintain this through regular meetings, workshops, etc. And then coming to the end of the process, we arrange either national or regional validation workshops, as the case may be, to ensure that there is lessons learned and findings happening throughout the process. So through the 5558 project, which was a regional project, we had 5 main components. We were able to update the 8 NIPs through component 1, where we also were able to do some enabling activities, such as looking at legislative frameworks, institutional capacity, providing training, looking at the capacity for data management as well under component 1. And so this greatly assisted in the process in terms of familiarizing or building capacity within the region to handle NIP development or NIP updates. As well as similar for Guyana, this was on a national perspective, and we were able to use some of the approaches from the regional perspective in order to fulfill updating the national implementation plan here. So using similar approaches where we had to do some stakeholder or focus group meetings or direct site visits in order to obtain information. So I will quickly go through some of the main challenges and limitations, and then some of the successes that we gained through the process. So like most of the other presenters, we recognize in the Caribbean region that there's a lack of information in general within the agencies or organizations that either manage POPs, use POPs, historically, have come into contact with POPs. And there's also a general lack of knowledge. So mainly also in the private sector, as mentioned by Gabriella, you would find that you would first need to update persons or make awareness, increase awareness within the region in order to assist the data that you need to collect. We did have challenges with respect to low responses being received from the questionnaires. And in order to do that, we had to look at the communication needs and the differences within the countries. So while some countries are very supportive and able to, or they have the resources to be able to respond quickly via questionnaires, or they may prefer this. Some countries prefer, that interaction, personal interaction, whereby you set up one-on-one meetings, etc. We did have challenges in terms of, so on our national focal point side, where perhaps you have a lack of trained personnel to support you on the ground, the center, as well as the consultants that are doing the collection of data for the NIP development. This has been a challenge, as well as the change of focal points when governments changed during our project execution, which took 7 years for the region. We experienced at least 3 project countries going through government elections, which caused some delays in terms of the process and the support that was needed to move the process along. And in that case where you have limited personnel available, then they also acknowledge that in some instances, there was not enough time to provide their review and comments in the process. There's not enough time for data collection as well in some cases in certain countries. So that created some delays within the project development as well. Because of this lack of human resources in many of the project countries, they have the inability to cope with all of these SOCOM activities. So those are created some limitations there as well. And then following the actual finalization of the national implementation plan, then there are delays. There could be delays in some countries with respect to national endorsement further to onward submission. Out of the 8 Caribbean countries that we completed the updated NIPS for under GEF 5558 project, we have 3 of the countries that have still yet to submit officially to the Secretariat. So this is something we're constantly following up with as well. In terms of successes that we gain through the NIP development process, of course, shared resources. There was mention of having databases through the project. We were able, at least the regional project in this instance, it was recognized that a database was needed for the Caribbean region. So this is something that the center has put in place in terms of being able to have a repository through our POPs regional information system, which is it is also GIS linked, so we are able to store information there that we've gotten out of that regional project. And the intention is to open it up to the wider Caribbean region for our countries to be able to store information here. There were identified gaps within the regulatory and institutional frameworks to manage POPs. I think this was mentioned by another presenter as well. So similarly, where there are gaps in the frameworks, there would be some limitations in terms of data collection, what data is managed within the country, how it is managed, in order to assist in a successful or smooth updates of your NIP. But we were able to have some shared learning experiences, both from nationally among agencies as well as regionally in the case of the regional project, which enhanced our communication with stakeholders, enhanced interagency collaboration. We were able to provide technical assistance through this process in terms of capacity building for personnel, in terms of understanding the Convention 1 understanding the information for knowledge transfer, providing more knowledge transfer within the Caribbean countries as well. And so some good practices that we recognize out of the project is that definitely engaging the stakeholders through the process from the beginning to the end is important. So the POP inventory data collection, we involve the stakeholders in terms of firstly providing training to understand the technical guidance and awareness of what is necessary. Throughout the process, they were able to participate in data collection, so hence building the capacity through that training. And then we also have awareness raising through the development of communication materials. We have a Stop the POPs website now where we have lots of resources that can be used, whether it's in the Caribbean region or worldwide. So feel free to visit. It is stopthepops.com. And we recognize in terms of stakeholder engagement, regular updates to our stakeholders and national groups are important. So we use avenues such as meetings, providing briefing documents, the shared website as an option if you have it available where you can provide updates to your stakeholders, as well as, general emails. And alternative ways to capture data, not only using surveys, is important. So using one-on-one focus groups, whether it's within sectorial basis. So if it's all your fire services in that sector, providing or meetings with your pesticides related to pesticides management, but then also the one-on-one engagement with certain private sector entities or even government agencies where needed. And of course, follow up via email and phone calls. But in that process, recognizing that there's limited capacity in the Caribbean, it was recognized that hiring also national project assistants is something that we had to consider for future projects. And hence, in the current project, we have a full national project team where they have a technical lead as well as project assistants within, as well as a legislative person to assist in that process to make it easier. And therefore, the reliance on the national focal points within the country is eased up a bit. And at the end, having workshops to, one, validate the information and the findings is important. And in that way, where persons were not able to directly be engaged, oftentimes in these validation workshops, we are able to also, finalize information to support the final NIP updates. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. I hope it was useful.
Thank you very much, Marisa. This is indeed a great work, and it's really great to know about the establishment of the information system by the center. I really hope it would be available for use for the countries in the region as well. It was also quite good to hear about the successful stakeholder engagement. This is something that GGKP is also partially focused on, and we would probably add a little bit in the end of this event on this. Once again, thank you so much. And now let me give the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Roland Weber, who's been in POPs environmental consulting for more than a decade, I believe, in even longer in the research on POPs. So, while there may be not one fit all solution to all the challenges we touched upon today, we'd be really glad to hear about some aspects. And Roland today would elaborate on the opportunities to promote an integrated and sectoral approach on chemicals, plastic, and waste management at national level. We believe this would be extremely helpful. Floor is yours, Roland. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Anastasia. And good day to everybody. Yes, I choose this title because, one is we will discuss on challenges of the NIPS and lessons learned. Actually, we have compiled a report in 2018 from NIPS to implementation with the lessons learned from the last UNEP project with the countries. So I recommend here to consider this report and the findings which are compiled there. And to best use is one key, the formal national capacity built for NIP development in the next NIP update. So this is one key lessons learned from my side as national consultant, as international consultant, and I've worked with several countries for the first NIP and also for the NIP update. And those countries which had the same personnel, or at least some of the key people from the first NIP, they also could do smoothly the NIP update. And those which did not have, they really had challenges. Another lessons learned is what I think is to involve universities and build capacities there, including the inventory development. Best in a research group working on waste and chemicals. And I think that each country should have a university with one working group which is working on waste and chemicals, and resource management, because all countries need to have the waste management also from scientific perspective, resource recovery, circular economy, also from scientific perspective. And especially the professors often stay for decades at a university, which might guarantee the continuity which we are needing for the knowledge. So there was the comment in the presentation of the African Institute just half hour ago, which said non-priority in scientific issues like the NIPS. So this sentence is very interesting because, I mean, of course, NIPS should not be a scientific issue. NIPS is something, national implementation is something very practical, should be something very practical, should be for the country, should be for policymakers. And but I completely agree that there are scientific questions in the development of the NIP, and especially for the inventory development, that often for people from the ministries, that they are too technical, too specific. And here I think it is important to have both stakeholders on board, for sure, the politicians which are interested in a developed NIP, which is practical for their needs, in respect to POP management, in respect to waste management, in respect to legal development, but also to have the science there, and the science can help with the nitty-gritty of the inventory development. I completely agree that when we look, for example, to the dioxin inventory and the detailed assessment and calculation of the different sources, it is not for a person from the ministry. This is somebody also with a research interest. And the same when we go into nitty-gritty of the inventory for plastics, from electronics, or for end-of-life vehicles. So therefore, yes, these are important stakeholders, and completely agree that the industry is another key stakeholders which is needed there to provide the data. In my presentation, I wanted to highlight that the development and review and updating of the NIP should build on existing work and assessment, and that we need an integration of different activities in the countries, and that the NIP should not stand alone. So here, POP should not be addressed on their own, but should be integrated within general chemical and waste management. And I think that for the countries I worked with, I highlighted this, and that we highlighted this and brought it into the action plans. That it's really not only the POP management in electronics, but that only the POP can be managed if the plastic is managed, and the plastic in electronics, and the plastic in electronics can only be managed if the electronic waste is managed. So therefore, here we have synergies between Stockholm, Rotterdam, and Basel Convention, and I see very strong synergies with the upcoming plastic treaty. And this will be, let's say, one topic I will emphasize in my presentation. There are synergies to Minamata Convention and activities on heavy metals like lead. We could link in the last NIP update to the broader issues of SciChem and the global framework of now to the global framework of chemicals. So this will be one recommendation in my presentation, because SciChem finished. And the SciChem issues of concern were actually developed by the request of countries. Yeah, this means developing countries have said, these issues are for us relevant. Yeah, and by linking POP topics to these issues of concern of SciChem, it can make the NIP more practical, and especially can reduce the work and not have one national action plan for SciChem and one national implementation plan for the Stockholm Convention, but combine these activities. Also, there are synergies to climate convention and greenhouse gas reduction. Also here, the African Center just mentioned that, of course, the big money is in climate mitigation, but there are good links, and we need to develop these links, that people understand that also the national implementation plan of Stockholm Convention can contribute to it. Just one example, open burning of waste and waste management is a strong part where you can reduce overall emissions of climate gases. So yes, so we have developed in the NIP updates these links to SciChem special issues, and very straightforward where the issues of concern on perfluorinated alkylated substances and transition to safer alternatives. So here, national implementation plans can have in the action plan not only the individual POP PFASs, but can link here to the broader PFAS. And actually, in Europe, we are doing just that the policymakers said we need to regulate PFAS as a group, yeah. And we could start here with in the national implementation plan with the POP PFASs. Also, it's easy to link from POP pesticides, which are also highly hazardous pesticides, generally to the highly hazardous pesticides, where are special activities of FAO, and the same hazardous substances in the life cycle of electronics and chemicals in products can today very nicely be linked to the POPs we have in our Stockholm Convention now. In the NIP development, I recommended that the specific POP issues can and should be linked here to the action plans to SciChem, and this can now be evaluated for the global framework of chemicals, yeah, which has just been finalized last September. So here in that global chemical framework, we have the emphasis that it should have commitment from all sectors, and they especially highlight here the private sectors and the industries. And in the first presentation, also, let's say it was not, that was from Uruguay Center, yeah, which highlighted their findings that we need, of course, a strong support by the private sector. Yeah, can be chemical sector, can be plastic sector, all those which are related to POPs. So when we look to the chemicals we have added, we see that most of these chemicals of the new listed POPs are plastic additives, especially the most relevant ones. We have now 5 brominated flame retardants, which are in plastic. We have chlorinated flame retardants, which are in plastic. We have short-chain paraffins, which are mainly used in plastic, and PFAS, which are mainly used in side-chain fluoropolymers. We have the UV328, which is a plastic additive. And also, when we look the new proposed POPs for the next Conference of Parties in 2025. This is medium-chain chlorinated paraffins, mainly used as plastic additive, and long-chain PFAS, also related, partly related to plastic. Yeah. So I see here a very strong link, and this we have with the countries I did. We have already included in the former action plans. Yeah, there it was mainly about brominated flame retardants, which has been used in electronics, which has been used in the transport sectors, in vehicles, which have been used in insulation. And all of these sectors, including the textiles, are huge sectors which include POPs and at the same time which include plastic. Yeah. And when developing the plastic convention, it's highlighted that we need to move to a circular economy. So our work on POPs and the management of POPs just is one important piece for this work, that the circular economy of plastic is really clean, and that we find ways on elimination. And at the same time, these 4 waste sectors are huge waste sectors which are relevant and practically relevant for each country. E-waste is the waste which is the largest with the largest increase. We have 50 million tons, which includes 10 million tons of plastic every year as a waste, yeah, which you have in your country, and which for sure is a problem of all these countries. And by this Stockholm Convention now we have the first projects on management, but also on the plastic management there. And one of the recommendations would be to assess these projects, which have been triggered now by implementation of the Stockholm Convention, check on best practice, but also the lessons learned, that all countries can progress and improve their waste management of electronic waste, including the plastic waste and the POPs waste in it. Yeah. One best practice here in Europe, that's a large facility which is recycling e-waste plastic, which is separating the POP plastic, and finally make money out of the separated plastic. And what is important is that this plastic is not going back to toys, but is really used here back in plastics for electronics to really make a circular economy. And it's a win-win, because you also have a saving of greenhouse gases, because you only need 10% of energy and 10% of water consumption. So it's assessed that around 1 ton of CO2 is saved per ton recycled plastic. But I completely agree, it's a challenge until to come there. Yeah, so there is, for example, in Nigeria, activities which started the recycling, and they had big hiccups. But I think we need to bring together the lessons learned from these activities. Another is end-of-life vehicles. I think that by the last NIP update, these were the first inventories of vehicles and end-of-life vehicles for developing countries, and I think that was a real good outcome, because one is the POP management, but it's only a very small part of the waste management from end-of-life vehicles. It is estimated that the 1.4 billion vehicles in the world contain 280,000 tons of plastics. So every year we have 14 million tons of plastic waste from end-of-life vehicles, from cars, which is more than from electronics. Normally we hear always about electronic waste, but actually when you look to end-of-life vehicles, the total volume of plastic waste, including then POPs in plastic waste, is larger than electronic waste. Yeah, and here also one good practice, here the European Union have put the end-of-life vehicle directive, which is requesting not only to reuse and recycle the metal, that's clear, but they set recycling goals and reuse goals that high, that also a part of the plastic need to be recycled and brought back to the vehicles. Yeah, and here I think it's interesting to look what comes out of Europe, because it is also for European countries a challenge. And we have the first project in Africa, in Ivory Coast, which is not only having in this project of UNIDO GEF the recycling of electronic waste, but also of end-of-life vehicles. So at least as best practice idea, yeah, to develop that for an African country. So I am involved there, and I see that there are large technical challenges in the project, and I think it would be good to also develop the lessons learned for that project, that in the next NIP update, good action plans can be developed in this respect. And when we look to electronics and here to end-of-life vehicles, it's not only POPs. Yeah, we have a range of POPs. It's not only the brominated POPs. In end-of-life vehicles, we have PCBs, we have chlorinated paraffins, we have the PFAS, we have UV328, we have Decloran Plus. So it is really a multi-POP polluted plastic. Yeah, But we also know that a big part of that plastic does not contain the pop. Yeah. So these are specific parts, like, for example, the textiles, which contain it. So this need to be managed. But other parts of the plastic of end-of-life vehicles can be recycled. Cars also contain fluorinated carbons, mean ODS. Cars contain HFCs, which are climate gases. Yeah. So here, these activities can also be linked with the UNECC, the climate change protocol, the Montreal Protocol, and there are more waste which are coming up. Yeah, and this can, let's say, be linked to our update of the NIP. And already highlighted in the last NIPs where I supported country, that here we have also recyclables which are valuable. So each car contains metals between $250 and $400 per car. So here actually countries could finance the end-of-life vehicle management if they would use this money. Yeah, but at the moment you have cherry picking, and finally the resources is taken out by some companies, and finally the rest which cannot be recycled is left to the country and in your environment. Yeah, so that's already in action plans before, and I think it can be further developed in the action plans upcoming. The same for construction. It's a huge sector where we have a range of POPs, where we have huge amounts of plastics, where we have greenhouse gases, and we have lead. So therefore also this is a multi-sector where when we do the NIP update, we can go beyond what we have looked before, only to the EPS, XPS, but to the broader use of plastics and to other pollutants. And the good practice is here for Germany and Switzerland. We have developed guidances for the decommissioning of houses. So in Germany, we are now not just breaking down the houses, but we are really taking out the valuables, but also taking out the pollutants. Yeah, and we have developed a guidance for that. I think that could also be useful for the next NIP update or for the current NIP update. And what we have learned is that we have long-term legacies from these brominated flame retardants. So, for example, for televisions and reuse of televisions, the life expectancy can be up to 20 years. For vehicles, it can even be longer. For the insulation in the houses, it is 50 years up to 100 years. And so one thing and one conclusion was that when we have this pop in these polymers, we have to consider long-term perspectives, and especially we need to take care when we now phase out the pops that we don't use regrettable alternatives, which will stay for the next decades or even for the next century. We have done a material substance flow analysis for Nigeria, for end-of-life vehicles. Yeah, this included the total amount of plastics, but also it includes the DKBDE calculation. And what you see here is that we have a projection that the peak of DKBDE in end-of-life vehicles is around 2030. Yeah, so that still much of it is there, and that for the next 2 decades to come in Africa, for example, you have to deal with these kind of pollutants in end-of-life vehicles, while we in Germany or Japan have already finished most of this topic, because the last have been used mainly 2015 and so on. And these vehicles are now in the developing countries. Another bad...
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but you are slightly behind the time. So if you could wrap up a little bit faster, that the next speaker can
I just come to the plastics. So here we have the link to the global chemical, to the global plastic convention, which will be in effect hopefully this year, and it can be linked to our report. It's not only that we need to take care of the 34 POPs, where around 15 POPs are in the plastics, but we have shown that there are much more we need to take care. There is this good report from UNEP So when we are looking to these sectors and to the plastics, we can go beyond and manage more. And when we look to these sectors, which I have just mentioned and listed, you see when you look to the global plastic, that these plastic in building and construction, the plastics in textiles, the plastic in transport, the plastic in electronics, this is close to 50% of all the plastics in your country. Yeah, this means when we, with the national implementation plan, tackle from our POPs the different type of plastics at the same time, we can come to support about 50% of the management of the plastic, especially the plastic which problematic additives in your countries. And this is one nice integrated approach. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Roland, and it was really insightful. Especially, it's great that you touched upon this plastic and linkage between the POPs in plastic and the recycling issue. And I believe there are a lot of great.
You know, Anastasia, I know the problem of the people in the environmental ministries. Yeah, they have different conventions where they involve. So they have not only the Stockholm Convention, they need to do Open Rotterdam, they need to do SAICM before. So the next is upcoming. So they might also be involved in the Plastic Convention. So I think it's very important that we show what are the interlinks to these people, and that we, when we develop a national implementation plan, that we really think in this integrative manner to help them with the different issues they are working on. Yeah, that not finally you need 10 different action plans, but that at least when you have different action plans, you have the links between the action plans.
Exactly, and thank you so much, Roland, for the insights. I believe those will be extremely helpful for the project countries and attendees of this event. Let me introduce our next panelist, Ms. Mihaela Claudia-Pon, Program Management Officer in UNEP. Thank you very much, Mihaela, as you kindly supported the former webinars in 2023 on SNP update. And Mihaela also, together with BRS Secretariat, led the effort under the GEF 9884, whereas the electronic toolkit was upgraded and it was relaunched last year. So we'd be really grateful to hear about that and the benefits that would follow online submission of NIPS through the toolkit. The floor is yours, Mihaela.
Thank you so much, Anastasia, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And thanks to Roland for the insightful presentation. I think I completely agree with the approach mentioned, and my presentation basically will focus maybe at a lower level, try to harmonize, information in the NIP and harmonize and link it to the reporting obligations, of course, and from this point on. Of linking with the bigger agenda, which I think it's quite important when it comes to the national implementation. So briefly, just not to take more of your time, I will talk about this electronic toolkit, and let me give you some background. So how this request came, it was following some mandates given by the Stockholm Convention COP, because there were several barriers and root causes that emerged following the NIP development and update processes, and in particular that there is a lack of structure template for the NIP. There is no relationship between the NIP and reporting, in the sense that, in practice, right? So there is, national mechanisms were not linked between the NIP and reporting, of course, and associated financial and technical challenges that were around. Therefore, the COP requested for the development of electronic templates that can harmonize the NIP and the reporting. And because the secretariat at that moment had no possibility to implement such an action. There was a discussion with UNEP, and UNEP proposed a project that was financed by GEF to be able to develop such a toolkit. And here are some elements of the project that ended in June last year. And there were several outputs. I will not go into those, but one of the outputs, it was the toolkit itself. And there were initially 8 project countries, but one could not attend. So in the end, only 7 project countries participated in the piloting. But I also want to mention that the toolkit was further disseminated in 3 different regions, Latin America and Caribbean, Africa, and Asia Pacific. Therefore, many other countries outside the project scope benefited from the testing of the toolkit. So one fact that I want to also share is that while implementing this project, we did this analysis on what are the interconnections between NIP, Article 15 reporting, but also other reporting obligations that existed at level of 2018, because as you know, convention is dynamic and things evolve. So what the conclusion of this analysis is that more than 90% of the data reporting obligations that countries have are covered by the data that is generated through the NIP process, which I think is a very important conclusion, but because this picks on the different challenges that the country mentioned, that we don't have the data to report, we cannot report because this and that, and the fact that by doing your NIP and working in depth on the NIP, you will be able to cover also your reporting obligation. So I think with this in mind, we had proceeded in building this toolkit, and now I will present a bit about its structure, feature, and functionalities. So I believe most of you, all of you should have received a request from the Secretariat to further test the toolkit, and also you have received the login credentials to do that testing. But the toolkit has also public interface plus the private one, the one that I was mentioning earlier, that usually you receive a login credentials, and then access is given, similarly as for the reporting obligation, to official contact points and national focal points into this toolkit. And the toolkit, it was structured in 4 different modules, and I will introduce each and every module, giving a bit more details. Yeah, so here it's a nice depict of the modules, and let me go further, because then I explain in detail. So so-called NIP submission module is that module that will assist parties in organizing the data in the template. Is basically the NIP format that was that is recommended in the guidance document that is put forward by the BRS Secretariat. And this structure was translated in this online format, of course, with different functionalities around. So you will have an outline, you will have different sections, you have, so the format includes and identifies the standard elements of the NIPs and provides this modular approach, as I mentioned, and provides also enough flexibility to address certain dynamic elements that are likely to change, in the sense that always there are new chemicals added that can be easily added into the format without disturbing too much the structure. And you have, as I said, functionalities, in the sense that you have predefined tables with predefined answering options, just for you to be able to identify your current situation. And you have templates for both quantitative and qualitative information, which you only need to fill in with data. And I think it's important also. There are buttons and tabs in there that will show you which of these information, which of the information required is mandatory and which is additional information that could be provided. Because we had a situation when countries were saying, yes, we are generating more data than the mandatory one through our NIP work, and we want to have a place where to put that information. Therefore, it was structured in that way that will allow you to input all the mandatory data and also additional data, but also will flag through these different buttons that you see here, will flag what is the exact link with what section, with which sections in the reporting format. So I think that is a major achievement, because you will be able to understand, if I fill this section, that will allow me immediately to fill in the reporting in the respective section of the reporting format under Article 15 and other reporting obligations. So these are flagged. And then when we go to the POPs inventory module, so this is structured in two sub-modules, how to say, two sections. So first section is on the summary of inventory guidance documents. We all know that the guidance documents are long documents, and in here, I think the main key information, it is summarized, so for you to be able to easily access it. Of course, when the need, you always need to get back to the longer documents and get more info, but summary is quite important these days when the officers, as Roland was saying, they are dealing with the whole chemicals agenda and they have no time to dig into the full guidance document. And this presents also, so part B presents an entry data form for different types of data that you get from the POPs inventories. You remember, for example, from the national work, when you are performing a POPs inventory, you need to compile the information into the report. Therefore, we are providing you with a format here, which of course has sections and tables that are interconnected with the NIP module. Because, for example, the summary of your information from a POPs inventory report needs to go into the NIP. And we are indicating which information needs to go into the NIP and in which section, which I think it's also a major achievement, because you don't need to think of all these elements. They are already pointed out to you. And I think also this will allow us to further go more in depth and propose formats for disaggregated data. For example, there are countries that are collecting data from different regions, and they will need some formats to collect that. And I think that is somehow foreseen as the next step when it comes to further development of this module. And then we have a guidance module. So basically, this is not bringing something new, but what it does, it compiles all the guidance documents necessary in this process of NIP update or NIP developing an update, and when it comes to reporting, in one place. So if you have a new colleague and you don't have time to show across the BRS website where all the things are, a simple access to this module will give the person all the information needed to be able to do his or her work. And then the fourth is the so-called queries module, in the sense that once the toolkit becomes populated, I mean, once you will start to, regularly input NIP data into the toolkit, you will be able to query the toolkit to, extract information from the toolkit. And you will have two possibilities. One is through these predefined search or queries. So you have different queries, selecting data by global level, by, NIP transmission status, by country, and also you can query by the qualitative, by the quantitative data, different quantities, amounts of waste containing pop-off or any other quantitative data that exists. But you also have the free search type of data query, where you can basically, gather information from the qualitative one, like the text, the free text. So you may want to understand, how many countries talk about this and that, and then you can just simply introduce your query and get all the results from what exists in the database. Okay, so functionalities, as I mentioned, there are different functionalities from the possibility to download the Word version of the document, because we all know at the national level you need to consult several authorities, you need to circulate the document for reviews and so on. And because there is, when managing the toolkit, there is a security issue. You cannot give access to 50 people into the system. You need to have this offline version to do that. And then you have it in several languages. For now, you have, as I said, templates for the qualitative information, so for text, but also you have possibility, for example, once you've done your first NIP and you have uploaded, when you start the new NIP, you don't need to start from scratch. You just simply clone the the previous document, and you do, for example, only the necessary updates in certain sections. So probably, most probably not all information will change from one update to another. So this gives you the possibility to save time and reuse part of the information that you initially filled. And as I said, it gives you a hint if this, if certain information from the NIPS links to the reporting requirements, and it exactly indicates which section or part of the Article 15 report, for example, it matches with. And that is also important. And then POPs inventory module, the same. For example, you can download the Word version of the POPs inventory format, report format. For now, it's only available in English, but I believe the plan is to extend it to other languages as well. You have the same, cloning, editing, deleting, submitting options, and same place for qualitative and quantitative information introduction. So now, just maybe to summarize, and maybe I need to mention this one thing, the toolkit was developed in the framework of the project, but was now deployed with the BRS Secretariat. Therefore, the BRS Secretariat is now the administrator of the toolkit and is in charge of, doing further updates, also providing additional trainings. Of course, from the UNEP side, we are still supporting on this. We have our project on NIP updates, and within the project, as you know, the countries will be required to fill the information using the toolkit, and therefore, amplifying the use. So that is for you to know. And then now maybe to summarize what are the benefits in using it. I think most of the things I said, but to summarize, So it's offered the online transmission and storage of information. Storage is a key word because we often see that there is no data management system in most of the countries. So what is collected today, tomorrow is lost because, I don't know, people leave and files are lost or computer are damaged and nothing can be recovered. You have the predefined structure, including the offline one. It is pre-filled, like, you know, tables are there, so already, you know, assigned in different sections. And you can reuse the information, as I said, in the next update. And you have a clear overview of data needs, which I think most of the time was an issue because countries were puzzled, like, what data do I need to collect? Where, in which section do I need to add that? And so on and so forth. And then when we look to the reporting, it is harmonized with the NIP. So therefore the NIP and the tables and the structure, it was done in such a way that ensured this harmonization with the reporting. If you can collect your NIP data, the reporting obligation are 100% covered, which I think it's an amazing news because then, you know, all the struggles that you have with the reporting will be gone. And then, as I said, interlinkages between the NIP and reporting are always highlighted, so you will know. So guidance, you have the summary of all documents, you have the links, then you have so everything in one place, which I think it's like one-stop shop. And data management, I mentioned, yes, you can store your data, you can store your POP data, and then you can extract reports using the query modules that I was mentioning earlier, which will help you very much in your work. I don't know, when you need a rapid report put forward for your government, but also this has, it is meaningful for, you know, donor organization to be able to see data regionally, globally, or by country, and also for the BRS Secretariat when they are compiling all this information for the COP, you know, documents preparation purposes. So yes, that is all from my side. Thank you so much. And yes, if there are further queries, we are here to help with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela. This is a great work, I believe, and I sincerely hope it will really contribute to the challenge of the data management system that was mentioned by several speakers today. And we invite all the countries to explore the toolkit. I believe it's well structured, would be easy to navigate, and we drop the links to the chat. And first of all, let me apologize for the delay of the event. We are very thankful to the colleagues, to the speakers, and all attendees that could stay with us. Fortunately, I cannot see any questions on the chat, but before we finish, let me give floor to my colleague Stephanie Witherini, who is leading on outreach efforts. Just 1 minute to add on some of the topics that were raised by our colleagues from Uruguay, and we will wrap up. Floor is yours, Stephanie, but just 1 minute.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Anastasia. Just keep it brief. And it was really interesting for me to hear all the insights and all the inputs from our colleagues from the executing agencies from different regions to learn what's actually the challenges and the concerns and issues. And one of them, as you mentioned, including the stakeholder engagement, how to really collect data and to make sure that people are there, all the actors are there to ready to provide the necessary data, of course, in relation to what Mihaela just mentioned earlier. So in regarding to these issues, GGKP, we are developing the outreach and stakeholder engagement guide for POPs inventory development in project countries that can be customized and adjusted depending on their national context. And I believe some of you have already received the draft, and we'll be really grateful to receive your comment and feedback to make sure that we address the right concern, the right issues, and that will be very practical and feasible for each country to work on and to really guide them on the POPs inventory. And on top of this, we're also developing the strategy for the overall global NIPS updates, and then each country to really to follow as a set of recommendation, building on the publication that Roland has presented earlier, lesson learned, and also inputs from our colleagues from the regional executing agencies. We will also launch the rounds of consultation to make sure that we address the relevant points and the relevant challenges to really come up practically. And for each project country, to report with the right data accurately. And we'll also make sure that this will be extremely helpful for them. So with their feedback, with their inputs, and with their insights, and that would be really, really great for us. And that would be invaluable feed into the overall draft and strategy. I think that's from my side. And for any question, any concerns in relation to this stakeholder engagement outreach strategy and guidance, we'll drop the contact so that everyone can reach out to Anastasia and myself by email, and we're here to support you. Thank you, Anastasia. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. That's great. And just before we conclude, let me kindly ask our speakers whether they would like to add something to this discussion, maybe any suggestions or questions. Please just be mindful of the time. We are really behind, but if you have any comments.
Yes. No, maybe just one addition to my first comment with the involvement of the science. Yeah, I mean, by involvement of the science, then the policymakers can also give all this nitty-gritty, which is science, to these researchers, which are basically interested in these kind of topics, or even can write a publication about it. Yeah, so here that would be one addition I wanted to make.
Thank you very much, Roland. And anyone else? Okay, if no one wants to join, and I'd first like to extend our gratitude to all of the speakers and all of the participants, the countries, and everyone who participated in this event for your contributions and attendance. Recordings of this event and presentation materials will be available on GGKP platform, Green Forum, Community of Practice. We will also share all of this by email with you, and including the summaries of this event. In English, French, Spanish, and Russian. And we are looking forward to seeing you next month for our inventory webinars. Thank you very much for your attendance, and we will close here. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.